Welcome to Behavioral Health in the New Normal, a podcast developed by Prestige Community Resources, aimed at bringing healing back to our community through knowledge, expert advice, and positive messaging. The show is a joint venture between the Department of Behavioral Health and Prestige Community Resources, funded by SAMHSA in response to the challenges currently impacting our communities. Hosted by Paul Wells Sr., who uses over 30 years of extensive clinical social work experience to conduct insightful interviews with experts and professionals on a wide range of topics that impact the Washington, D.C. community. From behavioral health crisis to education to financial hardship and anything in between. This show will provide information and insights that will surely make a difference in your life.
Welcome back to the podcast series offered by Prestige Community Resources in conjunction with the Department of Behavioral Health. Hey family, I'm so excited today. I know I talk about my excitement, but today I'm really excited because I have a dear friend I've known for so many years who's going to share her experience about the journey through mental health and her subsequent landing in a very solid place of stability and success. Her name is LaShell Rivers. Miss Rivers, welcome to the podcast today. How are you?
How you doing? I haven't seen you in a minute.
I know it's been some time. I know we're going to talk about that pandemic and how it's altered relationships and how people engage. But let me tell the audience before we get to really know you, kind of what the theme is today. Of course, the topic is crying out for help. The goal is for you to share experiences as an active mental health consumer about how COVID-19 and the pandemic has changed how you receive services. We're going to really focus on telehealth and virtual health. And hopefully you can share in this podcast the struggles and differences between in-person therapy and virtual therapy, and the struggles of isolation during the pandemic and the ways to cope with it. And then we're really going to focus on this book that you've authored called Hey Home Girl. Oh my goodness, which tells your journey through a lot. And I'm not going to give all the details. I'm not going to give all the details.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But audience, Miss Rivers was born in Washington, D.C., and grew up in the nation's capital during the 1980s. And she moved to a racist location during the drug crisis, and she faced being the regular female with a family containing killers, drug dealers, and dysfunction. Having mental health at her home and insecurities within, Miss Rivers developed a mental illness in her early 20s. She went to prison. She experienced a devastating car accident that nearly took her life. And all of these factors collectively ultimately changed her life forever. Now, guess what? Today, she's an author, an artist, and a social media influencer. So you can't tell me people cannot pull themselves and empower themselves and move to a place of success. So, Ms. Rivers, just tell us a little bit about your background. Let's start with where you grew up and where you went to school, because let's lay the foundation so that the audience can really appreciate your movement and your growth.
Well, the thing is, my movement and my growth, I grew up over here before a lot of things changed on Northwest, where Dunbar High School is, 5th Street Northwest and such. And that's when it was fun. We could play outside. We didn't have the phones and all those things. We actually went down the sliding board. Merry-go-rounds were still a thing, you know, and Kennedy Playground and such. But then it came to times when we started picking up needles and playing with them and, you know, seeing somebody shot, you know, and things like that. The crisis started happening. So mom wanted to get me, well, it's just me and her because my brother and sister had grown up by then. So me and her got to Virginia. And that's where I had to figure things out on my own, pretty much, because she was always at work.
How old were you when you moved to Virginia?
That was 4th grade when I moved to Virginia. I started 5th grade out there. So I guess that's about 10 years old, 10, 11 years old.
And I'm sure you experienced a big cultural shift.
Yeah, because there are still trailer parks out there. As far as, you know, before, you know, I was in the Fairfax part, and there's a huge mall section out there. And they were still building it, you know, in the Fairfax part, you know, Tyson's Corner. It was still, none of that stuff was out there. A lot of,
So you grew up in the 80s, and that was right at the height of the drug epidemic. And so your family, your mom was very aware and sensitive to that and tried to move you from the devastation, the destruction, the addictive lifestyles. Unfortunately, at some point, you kind of gravitated towards some of that stuff.
well, this is how that started. See, we're going to go into mom because her and my dad were going through divorce before we went to Virginia. My father was a drinker and a weed head. So that wasn't anything big to me. He couldn't hold on, you know, he was on and off jobs and stuff. But, you know, he watched me. Mom started having affairs. And one of those affairs just happened to be, she was breaking up with him, but he held on to her and he was addicted to crack. And so my mother fell in love with a crackhead. And he was very abusive, I put it like that, as far as, you know, my father. And she moved him out there with us to Virginia. She was one of those gotta have a man women, I got you to call it. She gotta,
Sure.
you know, her focus was on him and not me, put it that way.
Okay.
She focused on him.
And so based on her emotional abandonment of you, that then kind of changed the direction of your development and your attitude and kind of where your focus was, I imagine.
Yeah, because it changed my focus as far as, I mean, I was always into art. Like they had me in gifted and talented classes at kindergarten and first grade, but I didn't know, you know, what that was. And when we moved to Virginia, they had me in them as well. Not as much attention was coming towards me as far as, I always saw myself as that I'm money. You know, I can draw, I can sing, I'm playing an instrument. If
Right.
you are the right parent with a child, like you can, you know,
Right.
do something with me. But
You were considered a gifted child. You had some
yeah,
natural, instinctive gifts that that your training and experience in school was trying to actually encourage and influence and develop. Now, so you were a pretty good student in school, were you?
yeah, drugs came late. I put it to you that way. Drugs didn't
Okay.
come till my 20s, until after high school graduation.
Okay, that's
Go
remarkable.
ahead.
You got completely through high school, and then at some point you started using drugs?
Yeah, what happened was I was going for the Air Force. My sister's in, nah. I had to get away from mom. I moved in with my sister. I was going to go for the Air Force. And first time I, you know, actually smoked marijuana and I felt it, I was like, oh, well, hell with the Air Force. Can't go in there, you know, and that was just ignorance. I'm thinking like, I got this in me, I can't go. I didn't know it'd be gone that week. That's when I decided eventually, I guess it took a year for me to find myself. I was going back and forth and stuff. So art, you know, not arts, but computers were really becoming big along with the internet. And I went to computer school for 2 years to get an associate's degree in that. During that time, you know, it was around that time when things started really becoming more adult because I started carrying my son when I was graduating. I already had my own apartment my mom had co-signed for because I was working and going to school and a baby's coming, and she ended up moving in with me to help me with my son. Don't even ask about baby daddy. I call him a sperm donor. And I leave it at that.
Okay.
The reason my son meant so much to me was the love I didn't get as a child. I wanted to make up through him. Like I will
Yes.
love him the way I was not loved.
Absolutely.
You know.
I've had the opportunity to learn and a lot about your son, and he's developed into a fine young man. You've done a wonderful job raising him. Sometimes when we're the victim of abuse and neglect and emotional abandonment, it's hard for us to develop the and transfer our love to other people. You've been able to, through your pain, actually cultivate love and sensitivity and understanding in a very special way. Now, listen, so you didn't really begin getting involved with substances until your early 20s. Now, there was an incident and an
You're gonna be
accident.
surprised.
There
Go
was
ahead, I'm listening.
at the same time, was there evidence of mental health? Were you experiencing any
Yes.
depression and okay, tell us about the
Because
early.
I take that back to high school. I was saying the school psychiatrist
Okay.
because of my mom. I felt no love as far as family, and I needed attention.
Yeah.
You know, I got attention I said once my brother left and went to jail, he left when I was 12 years old and went to prison. I was like, that's it, because he was the only one who put focus into me. All my science projects, I'm winning first place. He's there. I need to get away from my sister who's calling me a wench, whatever. She's calling me every name in the book to just keep me away from her. So he grabs me and gets me away. My brother was my protector growing up.
And then he leaves. And you can be emotional with us. We appreciate your expression because it gives us it's very authentic the way you describe and how you're experiencing
but it's not only that, because mind you, growing up while I was still in DC, there were killers around me. Not just that, but family-wise. I had one uncle killed his brother, and he was embarrassed, so he stabbed him to death. I have another uncle that killed my uncle, killed his brother's killer, and basically did DC a favor and went to jail, and one uncle that was trying to jive like sexually abusing me, but being little, you don't know that until he was trying to do the same thing when I got older, But I dealt with a lot of people, I heard a lot of things, you've seen some things, and just it's in the family. The family is very dysfunctional. It's a very dysfunctional family.
One thing I recognize, Mr. Rivers, is you do have a significant history of dysfunction, and you're breaking that mold. You, based on the action you've taken to heal yourself and to go through a recovery experience, has terminated the transfer of pathology from one generation to the next. Through your healing and through your deliberate involvement with behavioral health services, you've been able to protect your son from victimization and exposure. And that's really a tribute to you, that you had the wherewithal and the strength to empower yourself to stop that transfer of dysfunction. And your son is a living example, and he really symbolizes a good state of health as a result of your efforts. So I'm proud of you, and you should be proud of yourself. Listen, there was an accident you were involved in that really, really had an impact in many ways on your life. Can you share with us that car accident?
Yeah, the car accident, my whole life had changed, because it was by that time I was 22 years old, 23. I was 23 years old, and I bought my house when I was 22. I bought my first house.
And you were doing really well. You were a homeowner.
I was doing really well.
Had a good job, making money.
The drug thing wasn't even there yet still. Maybe some weed here and there. I wasn't a big weed head and, alcoholic or nothing. But that was soon to come once this happened, because I had a seizure. I once had a seizure before with a car full of children.
Oh my!
And I took them to Six Flags, and we were coming home. And while I was parking the car, they said I froze up and passed out.
Oh my God!
And then I was told, oh, you're working too much stress, like I got a house and stuff. I got to take care of my stuff. The second seizure came when I went to work one day. I didn't even have to go in that day. They was like, we don't need you today. Go ahead and go home. And it was on the Suitland Parkway in Southeast Washington, D.C. While driving, as soon as the light turned green, I blacked out. And they said I went over the median and hit someone doing like 65, 70 miles per hour. I was like, and I didn't remember any of it. I woke up.
Yeah.
And so
well, Ms. Rivers, I understand you were on Suitland Parkway in Washington, D.C., and you had your second major seizure. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, this was a grand mal. As soon as the light turned green right there by Anacostia Station, I went over the median and did a head-on collision, and I did a complete 180. So it looked like I was going towards D.C. and not the other way.
My goodness.
That car went across and flipped and some more stuff. I woke up in the ambulance. I don't recall any of this happening. None of my bones are broken. Just a few scratches.
Right.
And I thought I was actually in heaven, because I saw a light when I woke up, and they said you was in a car accident. You had to calm me down. While I was leaving the hospital, one person did die in that car accident. The other person I heard their heart go flat while I was leaving, but they pulled through.
Okay.
So it was after that, because that's when, at first I didn't know the car. They said that, the car accident wasn't my fault. A couple days later, I found out it was my fault, and there were no words. My license was suspended because I lost coverage, insurance coverage. And if you're driving with no insurance coverage, they will suspend your license. So that was their way of saying, well, you shouldn't have been driving anyway.
Okay.
So that's how they pinned it on me that way.
This trauma you experienced kind of lended itself to kind of attach itself to your ongoing mental health distress. You already had some anxiety, you had some self-esteem issues, and depression. Now you have this traumatic car accident that resulted in loss of life, and it also resulted in a very critical injury to you. Is that right?
The injury I had was epilepsy. I am epileptic, and that still wasn't discovered until the third seizure. And they was like, okay, you have epilepsy. I was starting to be given medication, and none of the medication would work, to the point where I had to have an EEG and a brain scan. Part of my brain stopped growing, which was causing the seizures. And I could only imagine, I had a concussion when I was little, those merry-go-rounds. There's a reason they don't make them no more. Because I flew off the merry-go-round when I was little, and I went unconscious. It could have been that. Stop.
What was the treatment required for that epilepsy?
Brain surgery. That was the only thing.
You had brain surgery?
Yes, I had to have brain surgery.
Oh my goodness.
And that was the only thing that could control the seizures to the point where medication would work. That's just, so I'm on medication for life to not have seizures. Yeah.
Now I understand through your story, and I think it's described in your book, that as a result of this incident, you had to spend some time in prison. Is that correct?
Yes. Martha Stewart was leaving while I was going in.
Okay. And what was the conviction? What were you convicted of?
Negligent homicide is on my record for life.
And how much time did you serve?
I was sentenced to 3 years, so I did a year and a half. And I did, community service, and gosh, I paid so much money. It was just so many things, and I couldn't get a license for 3 years, and a lot of things were taken from me that way. I had to sell my house. I went from a nice house to renting my friend's bedroom, me and my son.
You went from entrepreneur, homeowner, and I want to remind everyone, when you were a young woman, you were in your early 20s, and you were getting it. You were really, it had a good flow. So you had a home, you had a wonderful career. We're going to talk more about your career. Things were going very, very well. You were on the top of the hill. And then you have this unfortunate accident, which really just changed everything for you. So you go from the top of the hill to waking up in a federal institution. Is that what you're telling the audience?
Yes.
What impact did that incarceration stay have on your mental health?
Well, it's funny because before the prison, I visited DC jail quite a few times because of this. Because after the accident, I had 2 years in between going to prison before the court date. So I had 2 years. During those 2 years is when I sold my house and moved to Washington, D.C. because my house is in Maryland. I moved to Washington, D.C. And started, got on welfare. Started doing things I hadn't done before, like the pandemic, when you lose all and you got to start from scratch. I put my furniture out for the people to come get. Thing I was left with was I gave my mom my living room furniture because that meant my heart, but everything else, I was just like, nah, it's just me and my son. And he's 4 years old. As
a result of losing everything, you just kind of spiraled into just complete despair.
I don't give a fuck moment.
And dysfunction, right? Exactly.
That's
and that's when the substance use increased. That's when your mental health deteriorated, and things just got out of control.
And I'm having seizures while it's all happening because
no
medication
still having medical, When you were able to receive some mental health services, now this is pre-pandemic, this is where you would walk into the clinic and you would talk with someone face to face. Were you receiving any support and services during this time?
You want to start there?
Right. So you never even thought to engage with mental health services then? When
I first started a mental health service, it wasn't until after prison.
Okay.
Because I got you really don't get too much mental health in prison. Your thing is to just keep your guard up, even in the female prisons, because bitches talk, and you be wanting to fight. They even get in your face, but you got to remember, if you fight, that's more time. Right. You won't be going home to your son, So that was my focus in there.
Okay.
And coming home, it was about, how do I start over? Because I went from house to this, and now I'm sharing. I went from prison, sharing a bunk bed, to coming home and sharing a bunk bed, just this time, just with my son.
Yeah.
And now I'm disabled. I know nothing about it. So I have to go through all the disabled connections. I already applied for SSDI, but they had denied me. So I had to apply with them again and get lawyers. It's like, it's so many steps that you have to take. And taking those steps, you have to be right up here, to be able to handle it. And I was handling it, but at the same time, I was getting ready for brain surgery. They were going to take out a piece of my brain.
Goodness.
So part of me thought, I was like, I'm not going to die, but I probably won't come back the same. So how do I figure that out? And I didn't come back the same. I really didn't. I had to wear an eye patch. One side of my body wasn't working like the other side. Things had to adjust. Depression was like, hey, homie, it just, because nobody want me like this. It's that insecurity becomes like, this is a real insecure, And then I started seeing people to help me with my as far as my mental. I started going over to this, let me see, I would see the doctor, and it was like, well, you need to see a therapist, they have therapy, and and all that stuff. You just need someone to talk to. Can't talk to nobody in my family.
So at that time, you had to walk out into an outpatient facility, and you go through enrollment and admission, and you have regular appointments. Now, during the pandemic, I think the primary service method is telemedicine, right? And so how does that feel, receiving most of your support through the phone, through Zoom? Is it?
My neurologist, I had an option. They was like, do you want to do him, over the phone, or do you want to come in? I was like, I'll come in. They was like, you got to wait longer. That's fine. I'll wait an extra 2 weeks. Because some things, even though I see you through screen, you can't really show everything. Like, they want to pull your fingers to make sure you can pull back. I can't do that through them damn.
The same thing true for your mental health services? Are you receiving that mostly through telemedicine, or do you still go into the clinic?
Mental health, that's a sad story.
Tell us about it, please.
I mean, it took a minute for me to really control it. I didn't get started, because I was doing the marijuana and stuff during my 20s. And I had then, even after the brain surgery, I did not want to give up on like my artwork and give up on, doing something with what I have. Like I figured I can't go back to regular work. I got to do something. I can't sit on my butt and just collect Social Security. Right. I didn't want to become that loather that lives off the government. That was my fear. I didn't want to become that. Right. And have to do something. And just the depression of not being able, feeling like you can't get anywhere and you can't do anything. And then you start to say, F it, I'll hustle drugs. I need money. It takes money to make money. Right. I joined a group for Black artists. I do this. And then I want to sell pictures. And I start getting my pictures hung up, down streets and stuff, but it takes money to make money.
Did some artwork for some celebrities and some famous people. I understand that you were really doing portraits of yeah. Can you share what that was like?
It was terrible, because it was by this time you get into this is now in my 30s. Now in my 20s, mind you, all that happened that we just spoke about was in my early 20s. I did not have the brain surgery till I was 27 years old. And then I wrote my first book at 29, which was nothing but poetry.
What's the name of that book?
Poetic Epileptic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's all my poetry, because I used to host poetry nights. And there's a lot of things I did. I hosted poetry nights at the, it was Bar None back then. Now there's, what's that thing that's everywhere? Oh, God, Busboys and Poets. And, just do all that stuff as far as writing. And I was trying to do something with my writing and my art.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, obviously these are something because my brain surgery didn't take them away.
Right.
So let me focus on that. I can
Okay.
still do computers. I can still do computers.
Right.
But you have to stay in school as far as computers go because everything changes like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard for me to keep up because I knew what to do, but I couldn't pass tests because of questions and, you know, things like that because of my memory.
Sure,
So yeah, my short-term memory now.
So Ms. Rivers, let me move the discussion. So I didn't know you authored 2 books. So your first book
Yeah.
was a book of poems, and
Yeah.
then you decided at some point, I want to hear what moved you to focus on your newest project. But you've just written a book entitled "Hey Home Girl."
Yeah.
And so what moved you and motivated you and influenced you to write another book? And tell us about the book.
Sobriety, being sober is what moved me
Um,
to write that book. During my 30s is when I started messing with other drugs. You know, I started hanging with the crowd as far as I was trying to make money to promote my book and my artwork,
mhm.
driving back and forth to a gallery here and there in Baltimore. And I'm not even driving. You know, I got to pay for rides. I got money. I got to pay. So it wasn't nothing but weed. And then I started hustling boat. I was hustling boat and I started using it. And this was around the age 32. And that's when I started doing those epic drugs that, oh well, that,
And
oh
then,
well attitude.
and then obviously at some point you went into, I would imagine, some substance abuse treatment, and then you committed to recovery and sobriety. And is
Yeah.
that when the revelation to write the book happened?
Yes, because it took a long time for me to be sober, completely sober.
Right.
I did stop the boat. What's it called? What's the other name for it? I know it's
PCP?
boat. But there you go, PCP, because PCP is primary care physician. So that's why I'll be looking at it like this came from PCP. Oh yeah, primary care.
I know that's right. Oh, that's right.
But yeah,
So
you know.
your clarity came during your sobriety, and then you decided that you're going to write this book. What was the purpose of the book? What are you hoping uh, to share with the readers of your book?
Really, what I was hoping to share is that I had learned through NA meetings and such that there are so many worse stories than yours, baby. So you have no excuse. You
Mm,
really have no excuse. You
mm,
know, I heard stories in there. I was like, damn, I thought I was you know, and I thought I sucked so many, or I thought and
mm.
it made me become comfortable with myself because I looked down on myself so bad.
Mm,
My mom had chose a crackhead over me. And
right,
here I am smoking the shit with weed, you know, and
right.
who am I to judge people when I'm doing the same thing or worse, you know, that sort of thing.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, just a few months. It really didn't take long because I got to step 4 in NA
Okay.
and I had to check myself. What
Yeah.
was it about me? It's just what was it about me that I needed to get out? You can't tell everybody everything. That's why I wrote. I was raised at that time where a child stays in a child's place.
Mhm.
You know, you need to be seen, not heard. You
Right.
know, so I couldn't go to my mom and tell her I had this problem at school or this is going on. I mean, there are times when I did try, but they didn't. What the hell are you telling me for? Or that's your problem, or, you know, stuff like that. So you can't really tell people things. And that's where psychiatry and therapy and those things had to come in its place. They come in your parents' place, they come in your friendships' place. Because what do they have to lose by listening to you? Hell, they get paid to listen to you. So,
Now
yeah.
listen, this book, I guess there's a process where you write the book and you have to find editors and publishers, and that's a whole process because there's a business aspect to this. Now, the book, I imagine, was launched when? When did you actually release the book?
The book got on the internet in August of last year while I was in the
Okay.
hospital. I was in the
So
hospital when it got there.
I want everyone to appreciate you launched the book during the pandemic.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not just that, but I got the book deal in February of 2020 before the pandemic even was an issue. They gave me a deal and stuff. I checked a couple. I went to 2 book people and I sent them the copy. And I just said, let me know if you can publish me and we can go from there. And they came back like not even a week later.
So when you got offered the publishing deal, did you imagine that the pandemic might interfere with release
Not at all.
and sales? Has it had an impact on sales or your projections around sales?
That's where the internet and the computer comes into play, because I can't go out there and do book signings. Now, I mean, somebody told me to do a book signing. I was like, where? I'm gonna prop it up in the street and face mask and sign, and it's just, it doesn't feel like that would do anything for me. And then when you're self-published, you got to buy the books to make the money back. So I have to buy a few hundred books and price them to get my money back and such. But how's that going to happen if I don't sell first?
Yeah, during the pandemic, it's pretty complicated because you have limited speaking engagements. That just what you would normally do to market your product. You can't do most of that because it requires some face-to-face engagement.
Yeah.
And so now everything's internet and social media and radio, right?
Yeah.
But I want to encourage the audience to purchase the book. We're gonna make sure you have the contact information at the conclusion of this podcast, because it's a powerful testimony of struggle and how you can pull yourself out with the right supports and the right attitude and the right motivation from a crisis state into a thriving state. Life for you right now is really going well. I want to go back before we conclude. I want you to tell the audience about this portrait you drew of a very famous, and you've done several, but there was some rejection involved with this portrait. You did a portrait of a celebrity, and you sent that to that person in New York, I believe.
Yeah.
And can you tell us briefly about that?
I actually went to New York and I went on her show, and I had a picture of it that I gave to them. And they contacted me saying, hey, we love the picture. Send it up here. We'll pay for it. Great. Maybe she'll give me a holla, And they got it. I sent it up there. They didn't even call to tell me thank you. I had to call and ask them, did they receive it? And I don't even know if she liked it or not. So
there are times where there's some rejection, and we don't.
There's been many rejection times. Yeah, when it comes to my art, because I send my work to certain people that are up there, because it takes you got to know somebody to know somebody to know somebody. I even snuck on White House grounds one time. Was with certain people there when I had my first book showing. You got to know people, and all that's in my book as far as the things I've done. But
so, Ms. Rivers, how do you keep yourself grounded and healthy during this pandemic right now? What are you doing to keep yourself stable and focused on your mission?
I love my Yorkie. He is my therapy dog. And I will cry because I've spent so much money on this little his leg surgery, whatever. That's my boo. He's my other son. My son, he's graduating from college this year.
Look at that. Wow.
His full scholarship for computer science. And I'm proud of that too, because he was on my lap while I was fixing computers.
Look at that.
When I was doing those things.
Are you telling me he had a full scholarship?
Yes, a full scholarship.
Wow.
Because I was on him hard. I might have been out there doing drugs and all that stuff. And Sean knew a lot of stuff. My son knew a lot of stuff. I'm not going to lie about that, because I wouldn't hide everything from him, because you will find out eventually. Things parents hide from you, eventually the child will find out, and it's not a good way for them to find out.
We definitely want to give a shout out to Sean for also having his experience and sharing some of his experience with you. That is such a best story, that not only you fully anchored in recovery and stability, but he's about to launch into a very successful career. And that's I can't say any more than wow. That is just remarkable how you've been able to parent him and guide him and nurture him and develop him into a strong Black man.
And a lot I did while I was high.
Yeah, okay. All right, I got you.
But I was focused, man.
Yeah. Ms. Rivers, I want to really, again, in closing, highlight this book. Can can you share with us the title of the book and where the audience can purchase this book?
Okay, the title again is Hey Homegirl. It was recently, promoted on WPGC. You can find it heyhomegirl.net, and I am on Instagram on these two pages, at Artistic Brains and at LaShell Rivers. As far as that go, and go fund me, because I'm trying to go back to art school.
Yeah.
I need
Tell
to
me
go to
about the
art school.
GoFundMe page. What your expectation with that is what?
Art college. I want to go to Corcoran Art, which is, I tried that before computer school. Art school is very expensive. And my parents, they were broke, but made too much money for me to get a scholarship. But my true love is art, and if I could do this on my own and not learning, imagine what I could do if I went to school.
Yes. So can you share with us the GoFund page again?
GoFundMe page.
GoFundMe.com, Art School One.
Yes.
Okay. So I encourage the audience to support Ms. Rivers as she continues her journey, and so that she can fully embrace her passion and her vision for herself. What is the best way for people to reach you? How can people contact you directly?
Oh, contact me directly. It's funny how you can Google a person's name and their phone number pops up. Or just Facebook me. Message me through Facebook, because I'm LaShell Rivers on Facebook.
Okay.
And Instagram me, all that stuff,
Okay.
because even if you go to my website, write me there and I'll come back at you. I will come back to you.
Did you put any artwork in your book? Did you do any of the artwork?
Yes, my artwork is in my book and it's on my website, which is heyhomegirl.net. Yeah, but yeah, pictures that I painted a picture of Miss O. There's two Miss O's. One was in the White House. I even sent it to the White House.
Okay.
Police came for me at the White House. I have some real big stories that you were like, no, she didn't. But yeah.
Right, that's right. Well, listen, in closing, I wanted you to share a statement with those folks who are watching this podcast who are caught in the grip of addiction and don't know their way out, or just caught in deep despair, sadness, depression, and don't know how to get back into the game. Okay. Encourage them by giving them some information or some words. Just share something with the audience or giving them some hope. What can you say?
Yeah, what I can say is there's that time where you can go to that you really want to be clean. You want to be, but you don't want to be. Because if you are clean, you're going to have to deal with stuff. And you don't want to deal with it. You just keep going to meetings. You keep going to 30-day trials. Keep going to in-house, outpatient, inpatient. Time come. You could go to a meeting and just leave the meeting and go smoke. So what was the purpose of going to it? And you will get tired of that. And it would take years. For some people, the easy one takes, for some it takes 13 times, 7 times, 6 times, but you got to keep doing it. And the faith, it will come because you'll be like, you know what? I'm tired of this shit. You're always in that tunnel, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's up to you if you want to walk to the light or stay stuck.
Each person has to decide for themselves when they're sick and tired and want to implement a change. So the good news is people can change, people can recover, people can heal. But it takes a lot of work. So I don't want to minimize it. It's not just a decision.
No, it takes a lot of work.
You have to put in the work.
You're around.
You have to engage with services. You got to follow a treatment regimen. You got to do things differently. In fact, they tell me in the rooms that you got to put the same effort into your recovery that you used in your addiction. And we know that the addictive lifestyle requires a lot. You have to put in a lot of time to master it.
And that's where the problem comes in with as far as NA meetings. Be like, one time it only takes you an hour to go to NA meeting, you're good for the rest of the day. Now you're going to have to stay on that Zoom for a few hours.
Look at that.
Because you're not around people. You can't get no hugs. You can't, fit, it's not there. So what used to take 1 hour would take maybe a whole day for you now.
Yeah. So thank you, Ms. Rivers, for sharing your stories. It's just a powerful story. It's a testament of empowerment. And again, I want to encourage the audience to get that book. Get the book, Hey Home Girl. Hey Home Girl. Ms. Rivers, we appreciate you. We respect you. We care about you. We love you, man. We love you. And maybe at another point, we'll be able to invite you to another forum or another engagement because
Yeah.
again, I think you can encourage and promote and empower people who maybe feel that there is no opportunity or reason to even live. And so we
Oh,
thank you and we celebrate life with you.
I'm glad we didn't get to that part.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you again. And for the audience, we thank you for spending time with Ms. Rivers and I. Again, it's LaShell Rivers. Her book is Home, Hey Home Girl. And I know you've enjoyed this time. If you want more
Yeah, just
information,
Google my name. They can Google my name and see everything. I'm popular on Gmail.
yes.
I mean on Google. So like, yeah.
Right. And we know that. And if they want more information about Prestige, just hit us up at prestigecommunityresources.com.org. And there's a whole lot of information about projects and initiatives and things that the agency is doing to promote good health. Ms. Rivers, peace and blessings. And if I don't see you soon, be safe, be well.